And I want to start this morning by sharing with you some news that is probably not news to many of you. I hope it is not. Are you ready for it? Okay. And that news that I hope is not news to you is that we are in the United States of America in the 21st century AD. Did we all know that? I hope we all knew that. I hope we all knew that. Okay. And as people who either live or spend time here in the United States, we have been exposed to an understanding of what it means for us to be successful. We are driven, as people in the United States in the 21st century, to drive for something that is sometimes called the American dream. And the American dream, by the way, comes from the Declaration of Independence, which says that all people are created equal. And by the way, as a nation, we understand that we do have a lot of work to do toward that ideal, but it is there in our founding document. And when we talk about the American dream, what we usually mean is that we have opportunities to live and to work and to learn and to grow. And when we think of the American dream, we also often talk about things like financial security or education or having a high-profile career or maybe driving a really fancy car or vacationing anywhere we want, anytime we want. And in fairness, the United States is the most prosperous country in the world in many ways. Many Americans are living the American dream. Many Americans have resources that just don't exist in some other countries in the world. And at the same time, we have one of the largest wealth income gaps in the world. Our richest people are significantly wealthier than the richest people in other parts of the world. But our poorest people are also poorer than poor people in other parts of the world. And most of us fall somewhere in between those extremes. Most of us are somewhere in what we call the middle class. And as Americans, we are often driven by this idea of that word success. We are a results-driven society. And if we're not careful, we can have a tendency to be blinded by that word success. Because we're blinded sometimes by this idea that if we work hard, we will certainly succeed. And if we don't work hard and we don't succeed, then it's our own fault for not working hard enough. Effort plus time equals results. Success in this country is something that we like to measure on paper. And we have to be honest and we wonder, is that the only measure of success? Things that can be measured on paper with figures and charts. And the question of the day from our gospel reading is, what is success and what does it look like? Because what does the American dream look like on paper? Now, for many people, we tend to see a mark of success as our salaries, for instance. We might say, this person makes $750,000 a year. She is successful. Or maybe some of us measure our success by the vehicles that we drive. Well, this person drives a really expensive car, so he must be successful. Or how about our performances on the athletic fields? Right? Aaron Judge has hit 35 home runs so far this season. He's successful. Joe Montana won 4 Super Bowls. He's successful. And those ideals are kind of the pinnacle of what we as Americans see as success. Those are the kinds of people who we hear about on the news or maybe on ESPN documentaries. But there are other ways to be successful because those people are anomalies. Most of us are not Aaron Judge. Most of us are not Joe Montana. And it doesn't mean that we're not successful. Most of us don't earn $750,000 a year. And most of us have nice vehicles. But I don't think too many of us around here have Ferraris in the parking lot, right? And that doesn't mean that we're not successful. So what does it mean as a parish to be successful? Now, did you know that St. John's is among the top 10% on paper when it comes to Episcopal parishes in the country? Most parishes don't have a budget the size of our budget. Most parishes don't have an average Sunday attendance the size of ours. Most parishes don't have a plethora of retired clergy who choose, by the way, to spend time in our pews when they're not actively serving. Most parishes don't have the means to work on a capital campaign like the one that we are in the midst of right now. St. John's is truly blessed. But do these blessings that we can measure on paper equal success? Now, probably those are signs of success, and I would be remiss if I said those are not things that you ought to be proud of. They're things that I hope you are proud of. Those are things that I am proud of. But what else is success when it comes to being a parish in the world today? You see, in today's gospel, Jesus says something that helps us to look at that concept of success through a different set of glasses. Jesus meets two women, sisters, Martha and Mary, and Luke's version of their friendship doesn't go into as much detail as we see in John's gospel. And in fact, we don't even know if Martha and Mary in Luke's gospel are the same Martha and Mary from John's gospel, you know, the sisters of Lazarus who Jesus would later raise. And in Luke's gospel, in the story of Martha and Mary sits at Jesus' feet. And Martha, on the other hand, goes out and does a lot of work, a lot of busy work, and then she gets frustrated. She gets frustrated because she sees Mary just sitting there talking to Jesus. And finally, she says to Jesus, "Can you believe this? I'm doing all this work, and she's just sitting here. Why don't you tell her to help me?" And Jesus says, "Hey, Martha, chill out. Why are you so worried about all these things that don't really matter right now? Mary's doing what she's supposed to be doing. She's getting her fulfillment, even though maybe she's not accomplishing anything on paper at the moment." Now, does this mean that Martha's work isn't important? And does it mean that the things she's been working on are not beneficial? No, absolutely not. But it does mean that maybe there are other measures of success. And as a parish, we get to look in the mirror and explore what it means to be successful in what we do. So I'm going to give you a prompt. And I want you to take just a moment to reflect. Because the prayer book tells us that the mission of the church is to restore all people to unity with God and with each other in Jesus Christ. That is the marker of success in the Episcopal Church. So here's what I want you to reflect on. What makes St. John's a success? Take a moment and think, and then I'll tell you what I see as your rector. Really, take a moment. How do we demonstrate success in restoring people to unity with God and with each other? Because here's what I see. Here's what I see in this parish as markers of success. I see a parish where one of our own has been given the opportunity to go on an honor flight to Washington, D.C., because of his service to our country, and a peer from St. John's went and accompanied him, spending his own money to join him and to be his representative in Washington. That is a sign of success. I see a parish that is continuing to open its doors to people from the community who have felt excluded or exiled by other churches, helping those people to feel welcome and loved and accepted. And that is a mark of success. I see a parish where we recently made a call for people to help out with Altar Guild. And people have stepped up to the plate. And today we will commission Altar Guild members for their new ministry. That is a mark of success. I see a parish that welcomes young children to the front of the sanctuary, teaching them that they are holy people, worthy to enter this space and to feel the love of Jesus up close. A place where those children, by the way, wake up their parents on Sunday mornings to remind them that it's time to go to church. A place where those children might be busy with their hands, coloring or braiding each other's hair or flipping through books. But while they're doing it, they are saying the prayers and singing the hymns. Prayers and hymns that they will learn in their hearts and they will never forget. That is a mark of success. I see a parish where our longtime parishioners gather regularly for outings to restaurants and plays and movies and events. And I see a parish where our young adults are building friendships with one another right now, supporting one another and enriching each other's lives by getting together to play games, watch movies, to attend outside activities together. Those are marks of success. I see a parish where parishioners gathered this week at the home of an actively dying parishioner. They gathered around his bed, some in tears, some holding his hand. A retired priest passed around his collection of prayer books, and he anointed the man's hands and his feet and his heart, while another priest laid his hands on the man's shoulders to pray with him and to comfort him. And then the retired priest led the people present in the liturgy, preparing the dying parishioner for his journey into the next life. And while the dying man struggled to breathe and spent much of his time with his eyes closed, when his rector told him, "We love you," he took a deep breath and said, "I love you all. I love my church," as loud as he's said anything since I've known him. And those present then shared a glass of wine to toast him in his honor. That is a mark of success. You see, sometimes success can be measured on paper. And sometimes we can get caught up in the numbers. And sometimes we can get caught up in the dollars. And we can get caught up on how many people we've fed or served or how many views we've had on social media this week or whatever. And all of those things have value. And all of them are indicators of success. But all of those things are secondary if we're doing what it is that we are called to do. If we are actively serving as the church in the world. And if we're doing all those other things that I mentioned. The relationships, the friendships, the burning desire to be in this place. That, my friends, is what it means to be a successful parish. I hope you recognize and realize what a great place St. John's is. And I know there are things that could be different. And I know that there might be some things around that might be more attractive to look at or more appealing. And I know that there are things that might make some people more comfortable or that might give us more resources. But we are a successful parish, a parish full of love and of light and of joy. And all of that is because you make it so. You make it so. And we make it so. Together we make it so. So while I don't want to discourage you from being a Martha from the story from time to time, I do want to encourage you to allow yourself the freedom and the liberty to be a Mary, at least from time to time. Offer yourself the freedom to just be, to enjoy the surroundings you have, to appreciate that you belong to the best church on this row of churches and the best Episcopal church in the Diocese of Arizona. As Jesus says, you have chosen the better part, which will not be taken away from you. Amen.